Hey, 2 weeks in a row, fake plant side chat. Last week, we started off kind of talking about our school year with whose authority are we sending our children out with, and then turning that into whose authority do we go to work with, go into our families with as adults. The end of the fruit of the Spirit. Paul says, against such thing there is no law. There's not going to be any rule or authority that's going to stop us from being loving, kind, patient, all of those things. And there is no law or rule that will ever stop us from living how we should, ever. We may try and give authority to some, but in reality, they do not have the authority that they think they do. And so just continuing that thought this week, as we get into a groove of whatever this school year looks like, whatever this work year looks like, whatever anything looks like. And I have a question along a similar line. Whose likeness are we sending our children out with? Whose likeness are we pushing on them? What expectations are we setting for our children to live up to? Ours or Christ's? And that's a really, really hard question to ask. That's a really hard question to ask because the likeness of Christ is completely sacrificial, is not obsessed with worldly gain, and is not going to put the American dream or the education system or the economic systems or the political systems first in priority. It is going to put the love and well-being, cherishing and service of others above all else. And sending our children out under that likeness scares us. See, we're more comfortable with shaping our children into ourselves, shaping our children into who we are and what we think, because it's easy. And maybe sometimes we even live vicariously through our children, hoping that their choices and their abilities can make us feel better about ourselves. And so we send our children out in our likeness, under the expectations that we determine. Are we setting them up for success or failure? Now, in the world's eyes, absolutely 100% success. We're setting them up to fulfill the American dream, get good grades so you can go to the right college, so you can get the right job, so you can die comfortably. But are we setting our children up to be like Christ? Are we sending them out so they can be in the likeness of Christ? I was in John 13 today. I ran to this today. I needed it. Before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that the hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry, and now he loved them to the very end. Jesus knew the Father, skipping ahead, Jesus knew the Father had given him authority over everything and that he'd come from God and would return to God. So he got it from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, poured water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around them. Jesus, who is just affirmed as the Savior, the fulfilling the role that God had for all mankind, he is the one. And so he got up and served. He served in a demeaning and humbling way because of love, because he wanted to be the example of service and love to those that he was trying to teach and have an impact on. And it's this moment that we see shaping the disciples later on as they finally realize what's going on. And so as we prepare our children to enter this world, whether that's through 12, 16, 18 long years of life in our house and school, are we sending them out into the world in our image or that of Christ? Because that of Christ is a lot harder for us to accept than the world's standards. And so now that I've got the nodding heads talking about our children and all those things that our children need to learn and do, adults, are we satisfied with living up to the world's expectations? Are we satisfied with being in the likeness of the world so that the world considers us a success? So the world thinks we have a good reputation. So the world allows us to continue this American dream cycle so we can die comfortably? Or are we putting our own identity on the line so that we can go out and look like Jesus? Whose likeness are we sent out to be? Not our own, but that of Christ.